I didn't even think of that. And now I'm just like, what if, and I'm going down that road. I can't.
That really is a harsh truth because Kody Brown actually thought he could waltz back into the spotlight and buff up his reputation with nothing but a camera crew, a few misty-eyed confessionals, and a handful of rehearsed apologies. In his own mind, an I'm sorry tour with better scripting would be sufficient to wash away more than 10 years of public neglect, emotional manipulation, and the narcissistic spiral that fans have watched unfold in real time. But he miscalculated, badly, because while TLC was busy painting Kody as a man on a journey toward redemption, something else was erupting across the Sister Wives universe. A detailed, clinical breakdown of his behavior written by an actual psychology major was circulating online, and absolutely dismantling the very image Kody was trying to rebuild. The author of this now viral analysis, a viewer named Ashley Shortcake, wasn't just tossing out casual opinions or fandom gossip. Ashley holds degrees in both psychology and anthropology, and what she wrote was a stunning point-by-point dissection of the behavioral traits that so many viewers had sensed but never been able to articulate. She laid out, with clinical clarity, how both Kody and Robin display hallmark signs of narcissistic personality disorder, and how their dynamic together creates a vortex that swallows everyone around them. Within hours, her post had blown up across social media. Fans were sharing it, reacting to it, and using it to decode years of unsettling moments they'd watched on screen. For the first time, viewers had language that perfectly captured what had felt so wrong inside the Brown household. And the timing. It could hardly have come at a worse time for Kody. Ashley's takedown dropped right as TLC was rolling out glossy, promotional posters for what they literally branded as Kody Brown's apology tour. Scheduled visits to each ex-wife were plastered across marketing materials like some kind of emotional roadshow, designed to sell the idea of a humbled man seeking forgiveness, except fans were reading a psychological breakdown that told a very different story, a story of a man fundamentally incapable of true accountability, a man who doesn't apologize out of remorse but out of obligation, a man whose emotional life is built around deflecting blame and weaponizing victims. And, next to him, a woman who has mastered the art of performing innocence while quietly benefiting from the chaos she helps create. Ashley's analysis didn't just hit a nerve, it connected every dot viewers had been drawing for years. Why does Kody immediately shift responsibility onto someone else? Why does Robin cry victim while sitting atop every advantage? Why do their apologies always feel rehearsed, hollow, and just a little too self? In an instant, the puzzle pieces clicked together, not as some sordid family drama, but as a case study in how narcissistic pairings actually form, function, and ultimately devastate the people around them. What Kody never seemed to grasp is that the Sister Wives audience isn't new. They've been watching him for almost 20 years. They've witnessed the gaslighting in real time. They've heard every cutting remark, seen every moment of emotional abandonment, and lived through the financial choices that somehow always favored Robin while leaving the other wives scrambling. A 4-week televised apology tour was never going to rewrite that history. And now, thanks to this viral psychological deep dive, not only do fans remember the damage, they also have the terminology to explain exactly why it keeps happening. But the psychology major's analysis was just the first crack in Kody's crumbling redemption attempt, because the real bombshell, the one that would expose the true motivation behind this entire storyline, was about to come from inside his own family. And just as this analysis was spreading, TLC doubled down. They started rebranding Kody's storyline, officially, as what it is, a redemption-themed spectacle. They made posters. They put out the schedule. Next week, Kody apologizes to Janelle. The following 2 episodes, Christine, and finally, the grand emotional finale with Mary. And even Kody provided what was unmistakably intended to be his big, reflective soundbite. I don't want to apologize for the things that people say I did. I want to apologize for what I know I've done. The network packaged it like a spiritual awakening. 1 month of Kody Brown touring the country, visiting ex-wife after ex-wife, trying to mend broken bridges. But here's what TLC doesn't want anyone thinking too deeply about. None of this came from within Kody's heart. This wasn't some kind of epiphany. It wasn't a latent life transformation. This was a storyline concocted in a conference room. Christine said as much herself in her book. Before the cameras start rolling on each new season, the cast meets with producers and determines what the show will cover. The big moments don't just happen. They are chosen and pitched and approved and buffed for maximum drama. So, when Kody decided that he needed to fly to North Carolina, Nevada, and Utah to apologize, that wasn't a spiritual journey. That was a storyline executives believed would boost ratings. And honestly, they're desperate. Viewers have checked out of Kody's narrative. The wives have moved on. Christine's remarried and glowing. Janelle has rediscovered her independence. Mary has built a peaceful life far from the emotional battlefield. Kody has no access, no control, and no one left to manipulate on camera. So what does TLC do? Manufacture a redemption arc. But as we're about to see, even his own daughter isn't buying it. The truth is simple but brutal. The women of the Brown family are finally happy. And that is a nightmare for a network that survives on dysfunction. Peace does not sell. Healing does not trend. Independent women living fulfilling lives away from Kody Brown generates no cliffhangers, no arguments, no ratings. Spike. So, what does TLC do? They manufacture a reason, any reason, to drag everyone back into the same emotional battlefield they fought so hard to escape. Instead of honoring the fact that these women have rebuilt their lives, the network dangles Kody in front of them like bait, hoping they'll be pulled back into old wounds for the sake of good TV. The so-called apology tour is not a journey toward healing. It's a calculated attempt to recapture the tension, the awkwardness, and the simmering resentment that once made the show a hit. TLC wants the camera fixed on Kody's face as he sits across from the women he emotionally abandoned. They want the tight-lipped silences, the tearful pauses, the moments when someone's pain spills over because they've been holding it in for years. They want the explosion, the emotional detonation that will light up social media, and the cynicism, when you take a step back and really look at that, is staggering. These aren't characters in a script. These are real women who survived real trauma. Christine has spoken openly about the emotional and psychological abuse she endured during her marriage. Janelle watched her husband repeatedly choose one woman over the rest, no matter how much she sacrificed. And Mary spent years trapped in a cycle of gaslighting, always wondering whether she still had a place in a family she helped build. When she said, "It shook me hard. Was I deceived? Did I not know who he really was?" That wasn't drama. That was a woman realizing her marriage had been built on half-truths and manipulation. Yet, TLC wants to parade all of that, the grief, the betrayal, the emotional exhaustion, as entertainment, packaging it neatly as Kody's grand redemption arc. But healing, that's not what the network is after. They're chasing ratings. Buzz. Drama. Enough emotional chaos to wring out one more season. What they didn't count on was the person who would completely blow their narrative apart. Kody's own daughter. In one Patreon discussion, Michael T. Brown handed fans the key to understanding why Kody's apology tour feels so painfully fake. She broke down something that most people never think about: the massive difference between apologizing and actually being sorry. And according to her dad didn't go on some kind of apology tour. He resorted to what she terms bulldozer apologies. These aren't apologies to heal someone else. These are the apologies to make the apologizer feel better. A bulldozer apology is when someone plows through the motions, the words, the hugs, the emotional speeches because it helps them sleep at night. It checks a box. It lifts guilt. It clears their conscience. But it doesn't have anything to do with those people whom they hurt. And in the mind of Mickelty, that's precisely what Kody is doing. He wants to feel good about himself again. He wants the shame to just evaporate. He wants to be left alone by the fans and family to stop holding him accountable. He wishes the negative headlines would go away and adoration would return. This isn't about Christine or Janelle or Myrrh. It's about Kody desperately trying to scrape together the pieces of his public image. Mickelty said something so powerful: the language you use matters. Sorry is not "I apologize." Sorry comes from a place of accountability. It means you feel the weight of what you did and understand how deeply it hurts someone else. It reflects empathy, blame, responsibility. But apologize, that's surface level. That's the scripted line you deliver because someone else expects it. It's the empty "say you're sorry to your sister" that a parent demands when two kids are fighting. The words get said, the box gets checked, yet nothing changes because the remorse is not real. And that's exactly what Kody's doing out there on national television. But here's the part that absolutely seals the truth. The part that exposes his entire apology tour for what it truly is. Kody literally said that he only wants to apologize for the things he believes he did wrong, not for the things he was accused of, not for how the wives felt, not for how his children suffered, not for deserting an emotional duty or causing chaos. He's only acknowledging the sliver of wrongdoing that he, personally, has decided matters. Everything else, ignored, minimized, dismissed. Michael T. laid out what a real apology should look like: taking responsibility because you recognize the harm you've caused, and because you sincerely want the other person to feel seen, heard, and understood whether they accept your apology or not. That's healing. That's maturity. That's growth. But it's none of that which Kody's after. He's after silence. He wants to make his ex-wife stop talking about the past. He wants to stop being the bad guy. He wants a clean public slate without actually doing the work. This isn't reconciliation. This is damage control with a veneer of humility. And the icing on the cake, Michael T isn't the only one peeling back the curtain on how things really work inside the Brown family. Because Kody's apology tour, every stop, every tear, every speech comes with strings attached. And those strings lead straight back to Robin Brown. What Michael T said next really shook the fandom. Before Kody could start polishing his image and launching this highly choreographed apology tour, there was one person to whom he had to report, and it wasn't a producer or a therapist, or even his own conscience. It was Robin. Not a cursory check-in. Not a respectful conversation among equals. Actual permission. And the reason behind that permission exposes a level of dysfunction that suddenly makes so many of the family's long-standing issues fall into place. When Michael T talked about Kody's bulldozer apologies, she wasn't exaggerating. She said it herself. These aren't apologies at all. They're self-soothing exercises. Emotional shortcuts. Kody saying whatever he needs to say to feel better about himself. But then she said something even more disturbing. Kody told Robin he needed to meet with his ex-wives individually, and Robin needed him to make that notification. As if she considered them women he had previously shared intimacy with. Just stop and consider that. These are not some random women from Kody's past. These are the mothers of his children, a number of whom he has spent decades raising families with. Women who have made it abundantly clear they never want a romantic connection with Kody again. Yet somehow, in Robin's mind, there's still a sexual threat. She doesn't view Christine, Janelle, and Mary as co-parents trying to work through the dissolution of a very public family. She views them as Kody's former lovers, and in her world, that makes them dangerous enough that she must approve every interaction he has with them. The framing is revealing and disturbing. According to Robin, the real children do not figure at all, and it doesn't matter that Christine shares 6 kids with Kody, including a minor he still pays child support for. It doesn't matter that in that family system, Janelle raised another 6 children. It doesn't matter that Mary helped build the foundation of their plural family from the beginning. No, in Robin's filter, all that history gets wiped away, and in its place is one label. He used to be intimate with them, and that alone makes them a threat. But here's the question the whole fandom is screaming. Threat to what? Threat to whom? Because each one of those women has moved on. Christine is happily remarried to David. Woolly Janelle has been crystal clear time and time again that she has zero interest in reconciliation. Mary has reconstructed a serene, stable life far from Kody's emotional hurricane. Not a single one of them has shown an ounce of desire to reunite with their ex-husband. So why does Robin still need permission? Protocols, as if Kody might suddenly be tempted the second he's not supervised. This dynamic raises an even bigger possibility, one that explains so much of Kody's behavior these past few years. Is that why he cut all lines of communication with his ex? If every phone call, every text, every conversation needs Robin's approval because she sees these women through a jealous, intimate lens, then the easiest path, at least for Kody, is avoidance. Don't call, don't explain, don't code-parent, just disappear from their lives. And let the story be, they pushed me away. That's taken even further by some fans, who drew a parallel that's really hard to ignore. Eventually, Kody was desperate to adopt Robin's children from her previous marriage, thereby excluding her ex-husband, Preston. In every respect, was that about stability for the kids? Or was this about control, making sure Robin never had a legitimate reason to maintain a relationship with a man she once shared intimacy with? When you look at the pattern, the answer is painfully clear. Isolation in a code of loyalty, protection masquerading as control, love cloaked as dependency. But the dysfunction didn't stop there. It was about to be exposed on a completely different level, one Kody and Robin never saw coming. Then along came the comment. This is the single, devastating analysis that cracked open their carefully curated narrative and spread across the sister wives' fandom like wildfire. A viewer named Ashley Shortcake, armed with degrees in psychology and anthropology, dropped a breakdown so precise, so clinical, and so brutally accurate that fans couldn't stop sharing it. This wasn't emotional venting or casual theorizing. This was a medical-grade dissection of narcissistic behavioral patterns, and it described Kody and Robin with chilling clarity. Ashley began first with the defining core of narcissism: a complete absence of a stable, genuine sense of self. Most people spend their formative years figuring out who they are, learning their values, shaping their identity, discovering what matters to them. But narcissists, they never actually develop that internal structure. They focus inward. obsessing over their own trauma, their own victimhood, their own image. They don't grow, they don't evolve, they don't build a real personality. Instead, they borrow one. They absorb traits from people they admire, or people they want to impress, or people they think others will respect. And suddenly, everything about Kody Brown clicks. Ashley pointed out that Kody has slowly molded himself into the exact persona promoted by red pill and manosphere influencers online. The patriarchal rhetoric, the lectures about obedience and loyalty, the wounded martyr speech about being the misunderstood head of the family. None of this is original Kody. He didn't develop these ideas, he absorbed them, because he saw men online being praised for dominance, control, and rigid gender roles, and he wanted that validation for himself. And the moment you see it, you can't unsee it. He wasn't just trying to look confident or in control. No, Kody wanted to project a kind of righteous authority, the kind that makes cruelty look like strength, the kind that reframes emotional harm as leadership. But Ashley's psychological breakdown of Robin, that's the part that truly sent chills through the audience. Because according to her, Robin isn't just misunderstood or sheltered, she's isolated herself to the point where her entire sense of identity comes from within a bubble she built around herself. No real friends, rarely leaving the house, no outside voices to challenge the story she tells about who she is. Well, if someone isolates himself from society like that, you have to wonder, where is his personality coming from? Who does he pattern himself after? Ashley's answer was unsettling. Robin shapes her identity through biblical archetypes. She doesn't just see herself as a struggling wife or a misunderstood woman. She sees herself as a scapegoat, a persecuted figure suffering unjustly, just like Jesus Christ. In her mind, the original wives, the public, even the wider fan base have crucified her unfairly. She's also likened her early marriage to that of the Virgin Mary's, suffering, deceived, betrayed, treated unfairly for 10+ years. It's a martyr complex so deep it becomes its own religion. Ashley said Robin probably thinks of this as a holy sacrifice on her part, letting Kody stay married to the other wives so the family can keep the show money coming in. And it's kind of like Mary watching Jesus on the cross. That's how self-important she is. Shocking, almost, in the audacity of it all. Robin truly seems to see herself as some kind of moral saint, a long-suffering figure whose pain is unrivaled, whose purity goes unnoticed, whose sacrifices are not understood by the world. It would be laughable if it weren't so tragic. It would be pathetic if it weren't so manipulative. Because, as Ashley explained, this isn't humility, it is textbook narcissistic delusion. That's why her comment hit the fandom like a bolt of lightning. For years, viewers have felt something was deeply off. They've watched Robin weep endlessly, insisting she's the victim, all while enjoying the largest home, the most attention, the most protection. They've watched Kody demand respect at every turn, even as he showed none in return. Ashley simply put language to what millions already sensed. This wasn't confusion, it was manipulation. But her analysis didn't stop there. She dug into the specific psychological patterns that make Kody and Robin, together, such a destructive storm. Robin Brown hasn't just cast herself as a misunderstood wife, she has built an entire mythology in which she is the eternally wronged woman, unfairly blamed, chronically mistreated, endlessly sacrificing for people who never truly valued her. But Ashley's breakdown tore straight through that illusion. Because what Robin displays isn't real suffering, it's a martyr narrative crafted to avoid responsibility and maintain emotional control. The biblical imagery is not an accident. Robin puts herself into sacred symbolism on purpose. For her, every criticism is persecution, every challenge is crucifixion, and every moment she is held accountable becomes just one more example of how the world has failed her. So she convinces herself that she's only ever loved too deeply, given too much, and cared too fiercely, and the world punished her for it. That kind of self-delusion is complete to the point where she can't even fathom how her choices hastened the family's collapse. Ashley even suggests that Robin views plural marriage itself as a kind of spiritual offering. She endured sharing Kody, suffered the jealousy, allowed him to rotate between homes. In her mind, these sacrifices elevate her, make her noble, moral, better than the wives who eventually reached their breaking point and left. She cannot fathom how her behavior might have been part of why they left in the first place. And the irony, the jaw-dropping irony, is that in one recent episode, Robin broke down sobbing about wives who are abandoned in plural marriage. She spoke of watching women in her childhood church give everything, time, body, life, only to find themselves discarded and alone. She called it heartbreaking. She cried as if the injustice personally wounded her. But here is what she conveniently failed to mention. She is the chief beneficiary of that very pattern in her own family. Robin was crying over hypothetical women, while Christine was crowdfunding for her daughter's surgery. Meanwhile, she bemoaned the suffering of forgotten wives. While Janelle was living in an RV on bare land, she spoke with great passion of injustice, yet Mary was locked out of emotional connection, affection, and even basic respect. How can someone call himself an ally, yet benefit from the very system that destroys others? It is cognitive dissonance at its absolute peak. And then came the whispers that Robin's tears weren't about empathy at all. When Kody hinted he might walk back his brutal statement that he never loved the other wives, Robin's entire self-created narrative was suddenly in danger. That statement had elevated her, validated her as Kody's one true love, the chosen one. If he softened that stance, her specialness evaporated, her identity cracked. Those tears, they might not be for abandoned wives. They might have been fear that the pedestal she'd built for herself was about to crumble. And that meltdown in season 20, it was no random emotional collapse. It was one small piece of a much larger pattern of manipulation, martyrdom, and psychological exploitation that Ashley's analysis exposed in full. Robin's quivering voice, the glossy eyes, the trembling lip. On its face, it appeared to be a woman overcome with compassion for wives who'd been abandoned by their husbands. But viewers who'd followed this family for almost 20 years, who'd watched as it all unraveled, they knew better. These weren't the tears of empathy. These were survival tears. Strategic tears. Tears shed by someone who understood the moment her narrative might collapse beneath her, and the timing. It was perfect. Too perfect. That emotional breakdown happened right after Kody revealed that he was just thinking, about apologizing for one of the cruelest statements he has ever made on this show. The moment he told the world that he never loved Mary, Janelle or Christine didn't just break hearts. It detonated. Fans were outraged. The wives were gutted. But for Robin, that statement did something else entirely. It protected her. It crowned her the chosen one, the soulmate, the woman Kody was meant to be with all along. After all, if Kody never loved the others, then Robin isn't the catalyst of the family's implosion. She's the inevitable destiny. His cruelty becomes her shield. And so, when suddenly Kody began second-guessing his own words, even hinting that he might walk them back, something cracked in Robin. And it wasn't compassion. It was fear. Was she relieved that finally, Kody was acknowledging the pain he caused? No. Did she ever encourage him to reach out and apologize to the women who gave him decades of their lives? No. Instead, she pivoted. She rerouted the entire emotional landscape of that conversation. Suddenly, she wasn't talking about the wives Kody hurt. She was talking about wives from her childhood, about abandoned women she once knew, about her own feelings, about her own trauma. It was masterful deflection, and it was utterly on purpose. People close to the situation have pointed out precisely what Robin seemed to realize in that moment. If Kody admitted he loved those women once, then everything changes. Her storyline, the one she has repeated for years, falls apart. She stops being the fated partner. She stops being the innocent bystander. Instead, she becomes the woman who took on a full-time husband while the others were left starving for attention. She becomes the beneficiary of a system built on the emotional deprivation of the Pipasaro original wives. Her tears weren't sadness, they were alarm bells. Her panic was palpable, because if Kody took real accountability, then Robin's "I never did anything wrong" narrative disintegrates, and she knows it. And thus, she did what she does when cornered. She slid right back into victim. She turned the spotlight back onto herself. She made the emotional weight of the conversation about her and her pain, her memories, and her fears, rather than the suffering of the women that Kody actually harmed. Even in her confessional, her version of relief was incredibly telling. She said, "Hallelujah, thank you, Jesus," that Kody was reconsidering his statement. But notice what she emphasized. She talked about how it hurt the kids, not the wives. Not the women who gave him years of loyalty, only to hear him declare they were never loved on national television. Why frame it that way? Because it makes her look maternal, compassionate, selfless. It's single quotes. Another layer of image management from someone who has perfected the art of televised martyrdom. But the deepest layer of hypocrisy, the part that infuriated fans, was when Robin cried about wives being left with nothing. She spoke as though she were heartbroken for those women, her voice trembling, her emotions spilling over. And yet, she conveniently ignored one crucial truth. She wasn't just watching that dynamic play out in her own family. She was the one reaping the most benefits from this. But in the financial story of the Brown family, there's a blueprint of exploitation that Robin's tears carefully sidestep. For decades, Janelle was the financial engine that kept this massive family afloat. Steady, hardworking, reliable Janelle. While others stayed home, she worked full-time. It was her income feeding the family, building the homes, paying the bills. Again and again, she sacrificed stability and comfort so the collective could function. And how did she receive compensation? By ending up in an RV on a patch of Idaho dirt at Coyote Pass, not a home, not even land with basic utilities, a recreational vehicle sitting on undeveloped soil, while Kody and Robyn lived comfortably in a nearly $1 million home. The contrast is damning. Robyn cried for the women who were left with nothing as she lived in the most expensive home the family owned. She cried about shared resources when she reaped the benefits of a system that funneled money and Kody's presence directly into her household. During the pandemic, Kody used protocols to justify living all but exclusively at Robyn's house. That meant her home received all the time, all the attention, all the partnership, while the other wives were left emotionally abandoned and completely alone. And then there is Christine. And the heartbreaking situation with Isabel's surgery. Christine's daughter required a major out-of-state spinal operation. It was invasive, painful, life-changing, the kind of medical crisis that tests a parent's spirit. And what did Christine have to do to make it happen? She fundraiser. She sold merchandise. She pleaded for help. She fought to cover the cost of her daughter's medical needs, while the man who was supposed to be her partner stayed behind and the family's financial resources flowed straight to the household he favored most. Robyn's crying was for abandoned women while she herself actively benefited from the abandonment of the very women with whom she shared a marriage. All the while. Of course, Kody and Robyn continued to live a life of comfort, insulated from the financial chaos he'd unleashed upon the rest of the family. No struggle, no sacrifice, no sign of strain. And amidst that comfort, Kody did the unthinkable. He made one of the worst choices imaginable as a parent. He never showed up for his daughter's surgery. He cited his so-called COVID protocols. But the reality behind his absence is a great deal simpler, great deal uglier. He stayed home with Robyn as his child went into major spinal surgery without her father there. To support her in that painful moment wasn't an exception. It was a pattern. The move to Flagstaff tore the mask off their financial priorities even further. The whole family was uprooted, ripped from stability, forced to sell homes, crush mortgages, and scatter themselves across a new city, all because of the perfect timing that aligned with Dayton's college plans. Convenient, isn't it? Robyn's son needed to be in Flagstaff, and all of a sudden, the whole Brown clan had to turn their lives around to accommodate him. Janelle lost her home. Christine had to start from scratch. Mary was stuck in another emotional wasteland, and Robyn, she landed in a mansion. So, when she cries about unequal resources, about wives left behind, about broken systems, it becomes almost surreal, like watching someone describe a tragedy from the balcony of the palace they built with its ruins. The cognitive dissonance is staggering. She mourns injustice while living as its greatest beneficiary, but financial exploitation is only one side of the damage Kody inflicted, because while the apology tour was to be about Kody making things right with his ex, someone else stepped forward with a wound that cuts far deeper than any failed marriage's daughter. Michael T. Recently, Michael T. had shared something on her Patreon that left fans stunned. It turns out Kody had been in North Carolina in her region, and he never told her. She was only a couple hours away. She could have brought his grandchildren to see him. She could have given him a moment with his growing family. She could have connected, but he didn't make the call. He didn't even send a text. The heartbreak in her voice was unmistakable, because, through it all, she made it clear, if the roles were reversed, she would reach out. If she were anywhere near her father, Arizona, Vegas, St. George, Phoenix, she would let him know. Even with all of the hurt, even through the distance and dysfunction, she'd still try. That's what family does. That's what love does. But Kody didn't return the favor. He was close with his daughter and simply chose not to tell her. The message that sends is devastating. His grandchildren weren't worth a small detour. His daughter wasn't worth a phone call. And this isn't coming from an ex-wife or someone with a long-held resentment. This is coming from a daughter who has tried, repeatedly, to maintain a relationship with her father, a daughter who has defended him when nobody else would, a daughter who kept the door open when almost everyone else had to close theirs, a daughter who still wants her father in her children's lives, and he paid her back with silence. Where McKelty's clarity makes her voice even more credible is that she does not cast the blame entirely on Kody. Upon being directly asked if Robyn is the root cause of the family's collapse, Michael T. answered with honesty and devoid of bitterness. She said Robyn is partially to blame. Kody is partially to blame. That the breakdown of this family happened because of countless choices, countless small fractures, countless overlooked problems that accumulated until everything shattered. Her ability to avoid black and white thinking reveals exactly how deeply she understands the dynamic. She knows it wasn't just one villain and one victim. It was two people, Kody and Robin, whose behavior fed into a cycle of control, isolation, favoritism, and manipulation. She lived through it. She saw the patterns forming in real time. And she sees now, as an adult, how those choices dismantled the family she grew up in. What she doesn't believe, however, is that her father's apologies are sincere. And frankly, how could she? Kody admitted openly that he wants to apologize because he's tired of people talking negatively about him. That isn't remorse. That's reputation management. It's image polishing. It's damage control dressed up as humility. Mykelti wants something much different from him. She wants the kind of apology that isn't transactional, the kind that isn't strategic. It's the kind of acknowledgement of pain, of responsibility, of genuine accountability, if it is never accepted. But to reach that level of introspection requires a self-awareness that Kody has never demonstrated. And that is where the psychology behind this entire implosion becomes undeniable. Because Ashley, the psychology major behind that viral analysis, reached a conclusion fans have suspected for years. Kody and Robin aren't just difficult, or flawed, or stubborn. They are two different forms of narcissists whose dysfunction multiplies when combined. Separately, they would cause pain. Together, they created an emotional hurricane that swallowed an entire family. The patterns don't lie. The evidence cannot be brushed off. And this apology tours we're watching is just the latest mask in their rotating collection. Ashley identified Kody as the overt, flashy narcissist, the kind that needs the room to revolve around him. You can feel it instantly. He thrives on attention. He needs admiration. He wants the high fives, the applause, the tell me I'm great energy. Everything he does is wrapped in image, power, bravado, and a desperate need to be the most important person in the room. He's driven by appearance, by material success, by ego, and his barely contained rage fuels every decision he makes. He has always been controlling. People act like this is a version of Kody Brown that just suddenly emerged from stress, divorce, or the reality TV spotlight. But no, this man did not change. He simply ran out of places to hide. The Kody who showed up on television in 2010, the one, smiling and energetic, or, in a word, charming. The patriarch was an act, a facade, a curated character, meant to look like the fun dad of a giant, loving family. Behind the scenes, he was the same man we see now, volatile, dominating, punishing, preoccupied with being respected, obeyed, admired. Robin did not build this monster. She just stepped into his world and gave him permission to stop pretending he wasn't one. Meanwhile, Robin runs on a different frequency, but the damage she inflicts is just as severe. She isn't the loud explosive type. She's the covert narcissist, the one who gets power by looking powerless, who controls a room with whispers, not shouts. Tears are her ammunition. She uses fragility as a tactic. Her constant insistence that she is misunderstood, mistreated, or unfairly judged turns everyone around her into protectors, including Kody. When Robin cries, Kody attacks. When Robin feels hurt, Kody seeks vengeance. When Robin doesn't feel included, suddenly the whole family has to change and mold life around her needs. She has taken years perfecting this illusion, the selfless wife who sacrifices everything, even while enjoying the largest house, most resources, and most unencumbered access to Kody. Together, Kody and Robin create a toxic ecosystem. His need for constant validation perfectly collides with her need to be the center of emotional gravity. Her poor me narrative gives him a mission. His aggression serves as a cover. He becomes the heroic protector she needs. She becomes the attentive audience that he needs. They feed each other, they fuel each other. They enable each other's worst instincts until the entire family collapses under the weight of their combined dysfunction. Everyone else, every wife, every child had been pushed to the margins one by one. Christine wrote about years of psychological and emotional abuse in her book Abuse that occurred well before the cameras ever started rolling. People who knew the Browns before TLC confirmed the same thing. Kody was never the laid-back, goofy, affectionate father he portrayed. He has always kept score. He has always been vindictive. He has always punished people who didn't respect him exactly the way he demanded. Now, at last, he has a partner who shares his vision in life. Two narcissists, different styles, same destruction. He brings the rage, she brings the tears, he brings the fire, she brings the martyrdom. Together they isolate, manipulate, and rewrite reality until everyone else looks like the enemy. That's why this apology tour is no more than a publicity stunt. He wants no forgiveness. He wants silence. He wants the criticism too. He wants the narrative changed and to get beyond it with the public. He is not apologizing because he hurt people. He's apologizing because he's abhorring the fact that he's getting But real change requires self-awareness, and neither Kody nor Robin has ever demonstrated that. So, behind closed doors, nothing will shift. The same patterns will continue. The same blame shifting, manipulation, and emotional games will repeat themselves. And the children who have already walked away, they ain't coming back. The trust is broken. Their patience is gone. Their hope is gone. Drop your thoughts below. Like, subscribe, and stay tuned, because the next video is already on the way, and trust me, you're not going to want to miss what's coming next.